Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Craig Peters here, and today we're going to be talking about the Cali LP-6s. Now, it's a little bit harder to do reviews of studio monitors, so the main thing I can do is talk about some of the features and my first impressions and what I think about it. So, I've been looking for some new studio monitors. I've been using the Yamaha HS50s for a while now, and I just feel like, because now they have the HS5s and the HS50s are the older ones. I mean, they're still pretty good, but I feel like I've been wanting something different. So we all know Ryan Bruce, aka Fluff. I saw him post about these on Instagram, and I was really curious because I saw that they were based in California, and they're a relatively new company. They started in January, and they released these around September, so they're still relatively new to the game, but the people itself aren't new to the game. So if you're familiar with JBL, then you are familiar with these guys' work. So the guys from Cali Audio were nice enough to swing by my studio and help me set these up. We dialed them in for my room, and we're going to talk about some of the features for doing that a little bit later. But we listened to a bunch of different reference tracks, from Michael Jackson to Alicia Keys, Rage Against the Machine. I listened to some metal stuff, classical. I've just been listening to a bunch of different music that I'm familiar with on these to really get an idea for how they sound. All right, so let's talk about some of the features. Now, the first things you're gonna notice, the first thing I noticed, well, besides how big this thing actually is, for a 6.5-inch monitor, it's pretty big. The first thing that I noticed is that it's front ported, which is a huge plus for all you guys who are doing stuff in home studios. Low end can be a real pain in the ass, so having it front ported is really helpful for not having your bass blast against the walls and that sort of thing. So the port tube is very big on this, which really helps with the evenness of the low end, and you really get a lot of low end. We're going to talk about the low end later too. You have a 6.5-inch woofer, and you have the 3D waveguide on top. Now, just listening to these for long periods of time, one of the things I noticed is that the way this is designed, it's really helpful to where you don't have to be in one specific static position to really, hear everything well. And with the 3D waveguide, one of the things that's really cool about it is you don't actually have to have these pointed directly at your ears. If anything, we actually kind of dialed it in to where these were sort of going a little bit past my head. So they were directly pointing at me, but it really helped once we set them up to really hear like the center vocals right in front of you. And there's just the overall stereo imaging is really, really good with these. And what's cool is the way this is designed is you can kind of move around in any different way, and you're not going to really lose the high end or anything. So it's really cool the way they designed this. So one of the first things you'll notice when you look at the back of the speaker is you have all these different diagrams for the different setups that are the ones that you normally come across in home studios or even professional recording studios. And with my setup being that I have it on a stand and how far I have it from the wall, so right here we have the boundary EQ control, and pretty much what this does is it sort of is designed to compensate for the different types of situations that you might have in your home studio or professional studios. If you have it on a desk, if you have it on stands, it's really designed to sort of, compensate for all of those different situations to let you dial it into your room. Now, as far as the inputs on the back of the speaker, you have one for RCA, line level, and XLR. So you have 3 different options to choose from, and you can also plug in your phone directly into the RCA and just listen to it straight out like that too. The speaker also has an 80-watt power amp. It's got 40 on the bottom and 40 on top. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about some of my first impressions. All right, so the first thing I noticed with these monitors is the amount of low end that you get from them, because the way these are front ported, it really disperses the low end really well. There's no real muddiness when it comes to it in the low mids. Because the way this port tube is designed, it really just evenly kind of pushes out all the low end, and it kind of tripped me out at first when I was listening to it, because I was turning off my sub because I was like, I want to hear, how much low end is just coming from the speakers. And I thought something was wrong with my sub. I kept turning it off and turning it on, turning it off, and I didn't notice much of a difference, but then I realized that the sub wasn't even on. All the low end was coming from these. I actually did a sine wave test with these, and I started noticing low end right around 34 Hertz, which is really impressive. So if you're trying to dial in your low end and it's off, these things are gonna tell you, because it's really easy to hear when the bass is inconsistent, when it's moving around, when it's not, focused and pinned in where it's supposed to be. So that is a really awesome bonus. So for all you guys who are doing hip hop and EDM and that sort of thing, and you need low end, these guys do it very well. Now, getting back to the 3D waveguide, when it comes to the stereo imaging, once I got these set up in the right positions, it was crazy how much depth and sort of stereo width of the image that I can really hear. It's not just a wide stereo image. You can really hear sort of into the mix, and that's what I thought was really cool. And not only just, front and back and sideways, like you can really it's like a full image. So, top and bottom, it's really crazy. So if you're listening to some music that sort of does a lot of interesting stereo panning stuff, stuff with automation, leveling, with, really trying to create depth, not just width. So talking about clarity, one of the things that I noticed about these speakers, I've just been listening to a bunch of music that I'm really familiar with, stuff I've listened to a lot in my car, stuff I've listened to a lot on my old monitors, and just kind of listening to it while I'm working, I would start to notice all these little intricate things that I never noticed before, because these speakers, they let you hear it. They let you hear the music for what it is. They're not being masked, they're not being hyped, and that's what I thought was really great about these, and I thought that was pretty awesome. Basically, what you hear is what you're gonna get. So for being the price range that they are, it's really crazy the amount of clarity that you get with these. Also too, listening to music for long periods of time, I would notice on my Yamahas, they would sort of burn my ears. And this video is not to talk bad about Yamaha. I know a lot of people that use Yamaha, and so I'm just this is my personal experience, but I would notice that they're just, as far as the highs go, I wouldn't be able to listen to them a lot for long periods of time, because it would start to kind of fry my ears a little bit. And I noticed with these, I didn't get that at all. I would just be listening to it pretty loud, not extremely loud, but loud enough, because I really wanted to test and see how these were when it came to that. And I would notice that I didn't get a lot of ear fatigue, and I thought that's a huge bonus, because if you're doing a lot of mixing for long periods of time, you're going to want something that doesn't necessarily burn your ears out all the time and have to take constant breaks. Time's an issue. So with the Boundary EQ control, I really like the fact that they sort of have the home studio hobbyist in mind, and not just the home studio hobbyist, but the professional studios and professional mixers out there, with the different Boundary EQ controls depending on your room. If let's say you don't have a lot of treatment, I have a decent amount of treatment in here, enough to where I can kind of clap or something, and I don't get a lot of ring and flutter echo. So it's quiet enough or treated enough to where I'm not getting a crazy amount of reverberance in my room, so that's helpful. But if let's say you don't, they have the different Boundary EQ controls set up, so you can actually dial those in according to your space. Now, one of the first things I noticed with these monitors is the fact that this thing is pretty big. When I saw that they were the LP-6s, they're 6.5 inch, woofers, 6.5 inch monitors. When he first pulled these out of the box, it kind of tripped me out. I was like, oh, I didn't know you were bringing over the 8-inch monitors. And he's like, no, these are the LP-6s, and these things they're pretty big. And it's just crazy. And what I think is really helpful with these too is the fact that they are such a big housing for a monitor. It really allows sort of the sound to come through, and I think it really adds to the amount of clarity that you get not being in such a small housing for the monitor. So that's really a helpful feature, the fact that they actually were able to make this the size that it is. Now, to give you an idea of how big these are, so these are my Yamaha HS50s. This is a 5-inch monitor, and compared to this one, you can see there's a pretty noticeable height difference, and not only that, but a pretty noticeable width difference. So when I first pulled these out of the box, it kind of threw me off because of the size difference, but let me say that in the end, it makes a very big difference sonically. So these have 85 dB of continuous output and 20 dB of headroom. So these things can get plenty loud, and loud enough to where you might be able to piss off your neighbors if you want. But most of the time, you don't really need to do that. So, I mean, I can get these pretty loud enough to where if I just want to listen to music for fun, or if I'm doing some mixing and I really want to kind of test it and see where it's going. And the thing I like about the fact that there's 20 dB of headroom is that you have plenty of room to work with. And if you start to crush your mix, or if you start to hear it where you're pushing it a little too hard, they're going to tell you. So that's what's really cool, is that they sort of let you know when you're going too far and when you're just right. So for all you studio guys out there looking for some new monitors, whether you do EDM, hip hop, rock, metal, classical, jazz, these things, they cover all the sonic spectrum really well. And for the price point being $300 for the pair, they easily, I think, crush all the different monitors in this price range, and even can compete with ones that are twice or three times the price for some of the higher end other brands. So yeah, if you're looking for some new studio monitors and you don't want to break the bank, because we all know, being home studio hobbyists, or whether you're professionals, the wormhole can go very far. So wherever you can save money, that's the goal. So with me, I like to try to find stuff that's really good quality, but also really good price. So yeah, if you're looking for some new studio monitors, make sure to check out Cali Audio. So if you want to learn more about Cali Audio and the LP-6s, make sure to visit their website at caliaudio.com. I'll have the link in the description below. As far as studio monitors go, I also want to know what you guys are using. What do you got? What do you like about them? What do you not like about them? Do you want to yell at me about why you hate your speakers? Just leave them in the comments and I will check them out. So if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure to hit the notification bell so you can catch all the videos when they go live. And I'll catch you all on the flippity flip.